Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here is the description about this material phenomenal universe, how it is expanded to a great 4 billion miles is a combination of 16 divisions, categories and 8 material elements. So, Prabhupada is describing in the purport about Sankhya philosophy. Prabhupada says, this analytical studies of material world are the subject matter of Sankhya philosophy. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna introduces this word, Sankhya. Let me see how many of you remember. What exactly Krishna talks about when he is talking about Sankhya philosophy in the 2nd chapter itself. In the 1st chapter, Arjuna had a lot of doubts, and all those doubts were asked by Arjuna. Then in the 2nd chapter, after Krishna accepted Arjuna as his disciple, Krishna starts answering his different questions. So Krishna says at one point, now I am going to describe to you that truth through Sankhya philosophy. So what does Krishna describe actually? And then Krishna also says, those who think Sankhya philosophy to be different from devotional service or Buddhi Yoga, they do not know the truth. Both of them are one and the same. So how do we understand that? By Kapila Muni, the Sankhya philosophy was actually propounded by Kapila Muni. And the Sankhya which is described in Bhagavad Gita is little different. But the subject matter is the same. It is analytical study of this material universe. Subject matter is the same. Krishna analytically describes what is matter and what is spirit, to give Arjuna the understanding between the difference between matter and spirit, so that with analysis one can try to understand matter is apara, it is inferior. Spirit is para, it is superior. Once we understand the subject matter, that matter is inferior, spirit is superior, we must act on that platform. That is called as devotional platform. So, Sankhya is a prelude to devotional service. Can anybody cite an example which Prabhupada gives in Bhagavad Gita? How Sankhya is a prelude to devotional activities or devotional service? Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example. Should all read systematically, scrutinizingly Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada gives the example. It is just like, suppose you want to analyze a tree. You analyze the leaves, you analyze the trunk, you analyze branches, you analyze roots, everything, right? Why do you analyze it? There is a goal to analyze. The whole idea is how to take care of the tree properly. Suppose you analyze the whole tree, then you are able to figure out everything is dependent on the roots. If I can nourish the roots properly with water, with whatever different minerals and ingredients, whatever is required, then the whole tree will become very healthy. So this is an analytical study done. So Prabhupada compares, Sankhya is like analyzing the tree, Bhakti is like watering the tree after knowing what is important. So similarly, Krishna's analysis in Bhagavad Gita about Bhumir, Apo, Nala, Khama, Vayur, Mana, Buddhi, all these things as separate from the living entities, Jiva, is for that matter so that Arjuna can clearly understand the difference between spirit and matter. Why? Because in the beginning itself, Arjuna was confused. He was acting on material plane. He was acting on platform of matter. And that is why Krishna is telling, Agata soon, gata soonascha nanu shochanti panditaha. Those who are pandita, they don't bother about somebody is dead, somebody is living. Isn't it? But on material platform, we are bothering. Somebody dies, we lament. Somebody is living with us, we are happy, enjoying with him. Isn't it? But for a real Pandita, the person who is on the platform of self-realization, who is in knowledge, for him actually there is no such difference. And that is what Krishna wants to bring Arjuna to that platform. So Krishna is bringing Arjuna to that platform from varieties of methods. So one of the methods which Krishna adopts to bring him to that platform of devotional service is by analytical study of what is matter, what is spirit. So Krishna starts analyzing. You see, matter can be cut. You can cut it into pieces. Matter can be burnt. Matter can be dissolved in water. Matter can be wetted. All those things. And then Krishna is comparing, but spirit cannot be. Spirit cannot be burnt. Atma cannot be cut into pieces. This is called analytical study. To draw to a certain conclusion that matter is inferior, spirit is superior. So you act on the platform of spiritual knowledge. Then you will not lament. Then you will not hesitate to perform your duty. Now on material platform, you are declining to do your duty. On spiritual platform, when you get that knowledge, you will not decline. You will understand the truth. So, similarly, here we are finding, Prabhupada is talking about this analytical study, Sankhya philosophy. So, actually speaking, In real sense, Sankhya is non-different from devotional service, because Sankhya philosophy leads to devotional service. If matter is properly analyzed, if this material world is properly analyzed, then it should lead to devotional service. Whereas, if our intent is different to analyze, if our intention is not to find out the truth, our intention is to somehow or other study this material world for sense gratification, let me know what all laws are working, which elements, how I can combine with each other so that I can exploit this material world, that intention is different, then that is not real goal of Sankhya philosophy. That is exactly what the atheistic Kapila did. That is exactly what the modern scientists are also doing. The same thing. They're analyzing the material world, atoms, everything. Today's scientists are also talking about. Now what is the conclusion finally they are reaching? You can see from the conclusion itself. After analyzing all these things, the conclusion they reach is, there is no one. Because if they recognize that there is someone controlling, there are some laws which are superior laws to matter which are acting, laws like law of karma, if they accept, then they cannot continue to do their nonsense. They cannot continue to do nonsense enjoyment in this material world, because then they will be held responsible. You are killing some animal to gratify your tongue, and you will have to pay for it in the next life. If they understand that, if they try to buy this understanding, then they cannot enjoy their material senses. So, atheistic Kapila's Sankhya philosophy, which does not lead to this conclusion, that is different. Or the material scientist trying to analyze this material world with a view of exploiting material nature is completely different. Otherwise, real Sankhya philosophy, which is presented even in Bhagavatam, that is what we should try to understand. Because we may also wonder, scientists are also studying this material world, what is matter, what is atom, what is time, what is energy. Why are we supposed to study all these things? We may also wonder, isn't it? This is to know that behind all of them, there is somebody else. Just before this verse, when we were studying time, all these things, time of Brahma, time of atom, everything, in the final conclusion, what is given in Bhagavatam? What was the final conclusion? Just last verse. Last class it was covered. Yes. That in comparison to the different times, material times which we are calculating, it is nimisha. From the perspective of spiritual life, this material existence is just a flash. So why are we so much bothered about this material world, which is nothing but in eternity, it is just a flash. So that is why all those comparisons are given, all that studies are given. So that scientifically we can understand, we can have scientific understanding that this material world is temporary, that there is a spiritual world which is permanent. Actually, I was giving a class in Jaipur. There I was reading one very beautiful Prabhupads had compiled one, some writings he has given. Prabhupada in his diary is writing about calling the GBC people and speaking to them. We all know that pastime of Prabhupada Leela, where he called all his senior disciples, specifically all the GBC people. And he asked them this question: are all of you convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Prabhupada asked them this question. And then he gave reasoning. He said, if you are not still convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is a person, and that he is the Godhead, he is the Supreme Godhead. If you are not convinced, you will not be able to expand this Krishna consciousness movement. If you are not convinced, you will not be able to convince other people. So first of all, scientifically, we should be convinced about all the matter given. So that's why from different angles Bhagavatam is discussing. Otherwise one single line is enough. Krishna is Supreme Personality of God. For gopis, this understanding all these bigger literatures, trying to understand with logic, with reasoning is not required. Because they have already crossed that logic. They are already on the platform of real knowledge, where they realize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they don't require all these things. But we are not on that platform. So for us to come to that platform of that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this material creation is very insignificant. We have to study all the cantos of Bhagavatam. Only in the 10th canto alone, Krishna's confidential pastimes are discussed. Just imagine. That's only in the 10th canto. Otherwise, in all 9 cantos, only creation, maintenance, destruction, all these things are discussed. You see, we should understand that. Why such a huge subject matter is discussed? To convince us to the point of, to bring us to the point of that summum bonum. To bring us to the point of that absolute truth, in which no illusion exists. Satyam param dhimahi. You see, nirastak hukam, in which there is no question of any illusion. To bring us to that point, all the 9 cantos are there. See, after showing the universal form, and when Arjuna was bewildered, Krishna is telling to Arjuna the simplest truth. That Arjuna, you are bewildered by all these big things. Isn't it? In 10th chapter, Krishna explained about his opulence. Partial opulence in this material world. The greatness we see in the material world is just a partial opulence of the Lord. Sometimes we get bewildered by somebody's beauty. Sometimes we are bewildered by somebody's intelligence. Somebody's greatness we are bewildered. Krishna says nothing but just a partial manifestation of my energy. What great deal is there, Arjuna, in understanding all that? Ekena amshena sthito jagat. This whole material creation is just sustained by my one portion of my energy. What is so great about that? See, that is what Krishna wants to convince Arjuna. To bring him to the platform of spiritual understanding. Because we are bewildered by matter. We are bewildered by greatness of this material world. So Krishna wants to show that greatness of this material world, behind that is also Krishna. But there is greater, the real greatness of the real greatness of the Lord is in the spiritual world. This material world is an insignificant portion of the Supreme Lord's greatness. Why we should become bewildered by the greatness of this material world? That is what Krishna wants to convey in that Bhagavad Gita. So, here, Prabhupada is also talking about the vastness of this material universe. You see, Prabhupada is saying here, the first 16 diversities are the 11 senses and 5 sense objects. The 8 elements are the gross and subtle matter, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence and ego. All these combined together are distributed throughout the entire universe. which extends diametrically to 4 billion miles. In this universe, how it expands, how the 16 things are distributed, how the combination of this is distributed. Earth is distributed, fire is distributed, water is distributed. Like we see, water has occupied so much space in the universe, right? So how all these are distributed, and it covers diametrically around 4 billion miles. And then Prabhupada is saying, beside this universe of our experience, there are innumerable other universes. You see? Just imagine. Brahma was bewildered just by the measurement of this universe itself. Imagine. What to talk about millions of other universes. Brahma is called as Adi Deva. He is the original person born in this universe. Right? From the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Brahma was seated on his seat. And there it is explained very beautifully. It explains in the second canto, 9th chapter. Brahmane darshayan rupam avyalika vritha dritaha. That because Brahma performed without pretension devotional service to the Lord, he was able to see the real form of the Supreme Lord. Not only he was able to see the real form of the Supreme Lord, he got darshan of full Vaikuntha Loka. You see? There is a description, if you see in the second canto, Shukdev Goswami is describing, the description of Vaikuntha Loka is given. How the women are there in Vaikuntha Loka, how the men are there in Vaikuntha Loka, how they talk with each other, what happens. The description of Vaikuntha Loka is given. And what is the description? The description is what Brahmaji saw after performing devotional service. You see? So this Brahma, he is described by Shukdev Goswami as Adi Devo. He is the first living entity, Paraguru, and he is the original spiritual master of this material universe, right? We all know that. So Shukdev Goswami is saying, he himself was bewildered. The Adi Deva, not an ordinary person, not some ordinary scientist, not some ordinary philosopher. Brahmaji, the Adi Deva, Adi Guru, he was bewildered. He was trying to measure the length and breadth of this universe. You see, what is this universe? It is situated in that stem. All the planets are situated in the stem of that Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Right? Just one universe. Not the other millions and millions of universes in which there are many other Brahmas. So imagine, Brahma was bewildered. He was not able to measure the length and breadth of this universe. And we tiny living entity are thinking that we will be able to figure out what is this material creation, what is this material universe. Isn't it? So, Prabhupada says, factually, when Brahma became bewildered and he gave up that process that I can understand this material universe by my own endeavor, by my own senses, when he gave up that process and when he started depending on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then, and when he performed tapa, then the Lord revealed to him his real Rupa. So, what do we understand by this? Simple understanding is, with our speculation, with our limited intelligence, with our limited mind, even with the greatest of the personality of this material universe, could not even get the length and breadth of this universe. Even how to create this material universe, he was bewildered. He had no direction. How to arrange the different universes, how to arrange the different planets in this universe, he was bewildered. He did not know. How to create the bodies of the living entity, he had no direction. Vidhi, he did not know. Direction, he had no idea. Both the things were missing. Bhagavatam says like that. What do we require actually? Suppose you want to construct a temple, right? You require proper direction, correct? You require process. Both are required. Direction is required and process should be in place. Then we can build the temple. Direction, how to raise money. Direction, how to meet more and more number of people, inspire them. How to get proper people to work for the temple. That proper direction is required. And vidhi, that proper intelligence of execution of this work. Architectural drawings are required. Different kinds of detailed drawings of plumbing, electrical, all those things. That is called vidhi. So when all these two things are together in place, then the temple can be built. So, Brahmaji, he tried a lot. He was not able to figure out the purpose of his life, for what I am born, what I am supposed to create, what I am supposed to do, and where did I come from, what is this material universe, he was not able to figure out. So Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami is describing that vidhi, how to create this material universe, and the direction to create both were missing. So, to understand spiritual world, to understand Supreme Lord, Vaikuntha planet, all that darshan of the Lord he was able to get after he performed devotional service. Even to create the material world was not possible by his intelligence. That also he was able to do after he performed devotional service. You see, even to understand the material creation, which is insignificant, one cannot understand it without devotional service. Without the mercy of the Lord, even the scientist cannot understand what is this material creation. That is how we find. The real scientists, the bona fide scientists, they accepted, just like Einstein or Newton, they accepted. Einstein is considered to be one of the very brilliant scientists. Different kinds of relative laws, what were not known to the people, he was able to discover those laws. And he is saying, my knowledge, in front of God's knowledge, how this material, beautiful universe is created, he says it is like pebbles. On the seashore, in front of the ocean, my knowledge is like small pebbles. Isn't it? That is what actually a real scientist will understand. So we are seeing here the biggest of the scientists, even Brahma, with his material endeavor, with material intelligence, he was not able to understand. So that is why Bhagavatam is describing the vastness. Here we are seeing the vastness, how these 16 elements and the different 16 categories and the 8 elements are spread throughout the universe to millions of miles. And which is not possible to be understood with our material endeavor, with our material intelligence, but with devotional service. By the mercy of the Lord, this knowledge of Bhagavatam, this knowledge about material universe, knowledge about Vaikuntha Loka, knowledge about real form of the Lord can be revealed only through the process of devotional service. So all these descriptions are given to us to bring us to the point of surrendering ourselves to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the process of devotional service. We'll stop with this. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.